Okay, welcome everyone to the Council of Canadians Creative Activism Workshop. We are thrilled to see you. Thank you so much for joining us. We have 100 people here today, so that really speaks to the role that creativity plays in our lives and our activism as well. So what we're hoping that you'll get out of this workshop are the following: ideas about creative things you can do in your activism, learning about art builds, for any of you who might not know about art builds, spicing up your activism, bringing some levity to your activism, some practice brainstorming, and then whittling down all of your brainstormed ideas into doable, practical ideas. And then also, we're hoping that you'll come away from this event, workshop, with an idea about how to respond to a current event. So in terms of categories of creativity, they're completely limitless, but I'll mention the art build again. An art build is a great way to get creative and bring creativity to your events. And that's just where you build banners and signs and maybe massive puppets, anything you can think of to take to a demo or a march or really anything at all. Some entire actions are completely dramatic, like street theater is something. You might have some spectacles, like any of you who are in Vancouver and maybe attended the Uber drop that happened back in 2013 that we did for the Northern Gateway hearings, consultations, if you will. And let's see, what are some other examples? I mean, there's a huge range of what's possible. Creativity, that's the great thing about creativity. It's basically limitless, right? You can apply it in a million different ways. So let's see. I think that pretty much about covers it. Robin, has Roberta joined us?
Yeah.
Okay.
Host, could you make me a co-host or make me a proper host, actually, please?
Yeah, I sure can make you co-host. And do you mind introducing Roberta?
I surely would. I'll admit most of what I know about Roberta is her fantastic street art history with street art. And so maybe Roberta, you can introduce yourself after I do too, in case I forget anything critical, but Roberta is calling us from Ontario. Now I'm panicking. You're from the London chapter?
I'm from London.
London, thank you for joining us. And Roberta's gonna run us through some of her, some of the things that she's made and participated in making for protest and different actions. Roberta's also a former high school art teacher, which is, I think, why so much of this creativity is coming through with her activism and why she's so good at including people in that, including people in the making and using of all of this street art. But I will quickly stop talking so that Roberta can tell us all about brilliant stuff. Are you, okay, so now I need to make you.
We're trying to share the pictures, but wait a minute.
I'm not ready for the pictures yet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I just need to.
I'll tell you when.
It says I'm disabled.
Yeah, I gotta fiddle with some stuff here. AJ, it's still not working for me. Could you make Roberta a co-host?
Make Roberta a co-host.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Where's the?
I have a PowerPoint, but I don't want to start with that.
Roberta,
yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing the pictures that you have.
I just have to test it though.
I made you a co-host, Roberta. So
okay,
yes,
excellent.
Wonderful.
Let's
Excellent.
get rid of what?
Roberta, right now we're seeing your Zoom
Strange.
screen. Yeah, so if you go to, if you cancel your screen share, so stop sharing it.
Up there, cancel. Green.
Then you can start over. And so when you hit screen share, there'll be a bunch of window options and you're just gonna want to pick the right one that has the thing you're trying to show so that we only see that window.
Okay. I'll start, but I don't see myself, do I? Can you see
We
me?
don't see your screen right now, no.
Why?
Because I haven't shared the screen.
Oh,
You
but I
see
did
her
want to
though,
talk.
right?
Yeah. Oh, you're gonna start talking before you show stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, take it away. Perfect, thank you.
Okay. The purpose of the types of props that we build is, of course, to facilitate our campaign and make sure we change things politically. It's not just for fun, but it actually is a whole lot of fun. And considering that what we do is an uphill battle, Sisyphus rolling the stone uphill all the time, and there's a chance of burnout, it's really important that we have things that create solidarity and community and laughter. And we always have wine and snacks when we're building things together. I made a list of things that are important to take into consideration when you're considering building something. After you have brainstormed, and then you're starting to get into the critical stage of asking some questions. This is what you ask. Are you going to get media attention? Did you call the television station, etc.? Make sure somebody shows up, or are you going where there will be people and you will actually be seen for all your effort? It's educational for people that don't know about things. If you make it strange, people go home and talk about it because they'll say, oh my God, I was waiting for the bus and this strange 30-foot snake went walking by, and they'll talk about it, and that spreads your message. So you want to make their day weird. Okay, there's a lot of creative tension, which is fun. It makes people giggly. It creates solidarity, inclusivity. It's we, not me. So it's a group of people all together thinking it up. It's embarrassing. A lot of people have never gone to an action or held up the end of a puppet or something, and they don't want to do it. But once they do it the first time, when you encourage them, they will do it again. So there is the first time getting involved. Laughter is so therapeutic and wonderful because we're all being silly. It's empowering, it's confidence building. And then the last thing I said was bite me. It's in your face. Okay, materials and design. It has to be, and I'm talking props, okay? Strong. It has to be lightweight. It has to be waterproof, or if not waterproof, don't bring it out on a drizzly day. We use all recycled materials. We use 3-ply cardboard if we can get it, because it's very heavy, and everything else is recycled. We scrounge, repurposed. Natural materials if possible. It has to be collapsible because you've got to get it there in your car. It has to be transportable. You want to exaggerate everything. You're looking for a metaphor that will carry your meaning with an image quickly, and people don't have to stand there scratching their head wondering what in the world is that. They need to get it immediately. Puppet theaters are great, masks are great, choreography, and of course costumes. And then Heart of the Beast, I don't know if that still goes on. Heart of the Beast is HOBT.org. Look up Bread and Puppet or Clay and Paper. These are all puppet theaters, and they show you how they make what they make. So now I'm ready. Sorry, that didn't work. Okay, ready?
Yeah.
I don't have a slide.
Technical difficulties.
Okay, we had many of them earlier too.
It's not working. Wait a minute.
Maybe
It's
would it be too
refusing.
distracting if I ask you a question while
Go
you're
right
No,
ahead.
go ahead while he's figuring it out.
okay? Well, Roberta, when we were talking before this webinar,
Yeah.
you told a story about some younger boys, some teenagers, I think, who came.
Yeah.
That was a great story. Would you tell us about that?
Yeah. There was a mom that had 2 teenage boys, and she brought them, and we were building props in my art studio in the basement. And one of the boys is a little bit autistic or Asperger's, very shy. And afterwards, he said it was one of the best things he'd ever done in his life because he was included. We included teenagers. I love teens, just like adults, you know. We treated him the same, and he had good ideas, and we listened, and he did stuff alongside us. So it brought somebody out of the woodwork that wouldn't have done this sort of thing because we're extremely silly and extremely inclusive. Anybody, any nerdy person, anybody with a crazy idea that won't work is still invited. We'll work out later why it may not work. Can I start now? Yes,
Yeah.
I can. Okay,
Yeah, sure.
this is the Cetipus being built. The Cetipus was a giant octopus made out of a tarp, and an old used tarp, not a new one. And the tentacles were each, I think, 12 feet long. It was a huge tarp. So it's 24 feet wide. We stuffed the tentacles and the head with bubble wrap, and we inflated Ziploc bags that could be reused later. So we just blew them up with a straw and sealed them. And it was lightweight. We had poles at the end of each of the tentacles. And you'll see that next. And the head was stuffed and had a broom handle that went up to hold the head up. And then, so it was one person for the head and 8 people for the tentacles. There it is in action. Cetipus, like GMO food. We had funny things it was against the CETA free trade thing that was going on with Europe. And if you look up at the tentacles, you can see that we made money that had euros or dollars out of green felt, and we stuck them in people's pockets. And then the suckers on the Cetipus are Velcro. So it could go down and pull money out of your pocket, taking money away from you. And that went all around London. There it is in the rain. It was waterproof. It's a tarp. And then this was a project in support of backyard chickens, which we have never been able to convince City Council to have, but we keep trying. So there I am as Mother Clucker, and and those are the fried eggs, my fried eggs. And we won the Wortley Village Halloween parade. We won. Still no backyard chickens though. That's making the head of a black pipeline snake. It's made out of 3-ply cardboard, and it's all hinged together. The jaw hinges down, and it's hinged like a puppet, I guess you'd say. And some of the ideas came from Chinese dragons. I Googled that. It has a body that's 30 feet long, but that's the head, and it's held up with a pole. There's the head. And it was against Enbridge Line 9, which they wanted to reverse Line 9 and go through London up the East Coast. 800 spills so far. It's made out of black fabric with poles. And then we made a water snake, which is a good snake, pipeline snake bad. And this is an Indigenous student class at Fanshawe. And we were given 2 classroom periods to put scales on the side of the water snake. The fabric came from Mark Calcavera from Toronto. He gave it to us, he had it. And we cut up prom dresses. That's where we got all the shiny fabrics, and there's sequins and beads and whatever all over it. There it is. We still need to put more sequins on it. There's lots of room. It's not a circle. It is like a banner. It's just, it's flat, and it's a horned serpent, because when I researched snakes, indigenous snakes, or even snakes from China, they all have horns. Funny. And the eye is designed from a Northwest Coast style of eye, and but the rest of it is not an attempt to copy any particular cultural snake. It's general. And you'll recognize Maud Barlow, and I don't know if you can see Mark Calcavera on the right. He's behind my, all of you are covering him, but that's okay. This is in Ingersoll, and it was at, where was that? That was at, Run of the River water event. Yeah. And there it is at Earth Day, and anybody around, they love it. You just say, oh, come on, we need someone to hold the stick, it's sagging. And they come over, and kids, and they participate, and they love it. Now, this is the toxic tour in Sarnia. And this is against Enbridge Line 9. So there's the black pipeline snake, and then we brought the good water snake as well. There's the pipeline snake going by. There's Sarnia, and there's Enbridge, 800 spills so far, not worth the risk to our water, our land, our health. Stop line 9. There's the water snake there. There's downtown London with the Enbridge snake and Royal Bank. And World Water Day, we took our picture and sent it in for that. There's our water snake. There's our Council of Canadians sign. We made noisemakers, Seussian, like Dr. Seuss instruments out of toys. So we went to the Goodwill and such and got all these plastic things and had fun taping them together, gluing them together. We used various whistles and things for mouthpieces. The point was to make a lot of noise and get more people to pay attention to what intervention we were doing. There we are making the instruments in my studio. There she is hitting a drum, which is a water container. And then public health care is a campaign that we supported. And we used the noisemakers in front of the hospital to make a lot of noise about public health care. And there's Get on the Bus for Public Health Care, because we were collecting a group to go to Toronto. This was a thing I did in Ingersoll for Run of the River about making props, art, and activism. And there's a cloud. We did the water cycle for a water booth once, and all the clouds are just stapled and backfilled with old bags or whatever you can find. And we had water droplets as mobiles that hung from the bottom of the clouds, and they all dangled from the structure on the top of the booth. This is healthcare, trying to stop it from being privatized, which is still an ongoing campaign here. And so this is the raising the alarm about healthcare with increased wait times and the other things on one side, and decreased rural hospital services, etc., on the other side. And that folded in half to go in the car. Okay, this bloody sheet is again for healthcare, and it was death by 1,000 cuts. So this was funny because the person on the left that is enjoying her hands in red paint is a very quiet person with a kind of personality like an accountant or something. She's not creative and she wouldn't do this sort of thing, but she came, and boy, did she get into it. She just had the most fun. She had paint all over herself. And there is how we used it. We got a hospital bed and we put a Halloween skeleton in it. And then we made cardboard knives with tinfoil over the blade, and each knife, nurses cut, funding cut, pharma care cut, etc. And this, the television station came, and this was wheeled around. Bloody sheet, yeah. There we are.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I feel like I know you have so many things to show, but I want to ask a couple of questions about some of the things you've already shown us. Is that okay?
All right.
Well, I'm wondering, like, a general question I have is, like, are these things you're showing us, are you like bringing them to a demonstration that's already going on and there's other people, or is the art the demonstration, or sometimes
no, we're in support. For instance, we support, what's the group here? Jeff Hanks, you know, Ontario Health Coalition. We support the Ontario Health Coalition. We support the people fighting Line 9 and the pipelines. You know, we support clean water for Indigenous. Yeah.
So does the
So
government.
mostly like
All
there's
of
a,
these are come in support to amplify an ongoing campaign.
yeah, that makes sense. I personally am somewhat obsessed with the CETA post that you made. And I wonder if you can explain the like leap from how did you get from CETA, this long and terrible trade agreement, to an octopus made out of an old tarp? I think that process is
Well,
fabulous.
We sat around, I remember the night, throwing around ideas. It's called brainstorming, and any stupid idea goes. You don't ever criticize or claim that it might not be practical or too expensive. And out of that came the image of the octopus, that it had tentacles that reaches out in so many ways into our lives, CETA, if it were to go through. So then we thought that we just imagined an octopus that had tentacles, and then a giant octopus, and then how would we make it? And I happen to have a big, it's blue because I had a big blue tarp. It's a huge tarp. And so then we took a separate small tarp and put grommets in it and stuffed it and tied it up for the head. But the other tarp, we cut it into huge triangles for the tentacles. They were 12 feet long, and we stitched them, just a running stitch, in and out, and then reversed the tentacle and then stuffed it, and then got peel and stick Velcro for suckers. And then we had to sew it and attach it to the head. It was one big.
I love that. That's fantastic. I was also wondering, on the Get on the Bus one, you said you were trying to get people, like it was actually, you were trying to organize people to get onto a bus.
They had a bus,
Yeah.
and we wanted to fill it. And so we went downtown with it and walked around with it and told people what it was about,
Going to
how they
Yeah.
could sign up for Queen's Park.
So it's not just like some of these things that you're doing are like for show and they're to be like visually exciting and like a bit engaging, but for the bus one, it was like you're actually using this prop, using art to recruit people to do something.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, we are. Wanted them to know there's a bus, and we had handouts that told how they can get a free ride there. And that's how we got so many people to go.
That's wonderful. I know you have more pictures, but I want to make sure that people have time to ask questions as well. So maybe I'll see if folks have a question. If you want to type it, you can type it, and then I'll read it out and Roberta can answer.
Am I talking too fast? No.
No.
Okay.
I think it's fine, but I'll leave that up to the audience, I guess. Okay, so if you have questions, pop them in the chat, but maybe Roberta, you want to do more things while we're waiting for those questions to roll in?
Yeah, next one.
Should I go? Okay. We were in support of Canada Post, and let me see, Canada Post and Cup W, right? To stop privatization and to stop the community mailboxes from coming into neighborhoods, which would there'd be unemployed people. And we like the idea that a person comes into the neighborhood, delivers the mail, there's a certain security, nice to know that there's eyes on the road, people say hello, it's just friendlier. And then there's a traffic problem with people at the end of the day trying to all get down to the community mailbox. So anyway, what we made, that's a pad that you see there that is already designated. There will be a community mailbox on that site. So what we did was, that's an old dresser that I found, and we pulled all the drawers out and made planters out of all of them and stacked them. And those are pollinator plants. And also plants that were found in people's lawns and stuff growing there. And we have all the Safe Door to Door, Food Not Lawns, all the groups of people that are active and support public things there. Yeah, right. Okay. This was when Harper was running for re-election, and we wanted people to know the truth instead of the lies. So this is made out of an old refrigerator box. And it's styled after those old puppet theaters. I Googled some really neat Punch and Judy style. And then we put a person in there in a chair, and you could go up and ask a question. And we had people that were trained, you know, some of us were plants, like, oh, I heard something or other. Is that really true? And then we tell the truth. And that was part in a parking lot as part, actually, was that part of an event? It was at the farmer's market, and they wouldn't let us be near the farmer's market. They said that was private land and we couldn't be there. So we had to move across the street and ended up on a sidewalk, which wasn't as nice as if we could have been near people going to the market. But anyway.
I find farmers markets are really stringent on the rules sometimes. There's a couple questions for you, Roberta. One is that you have a fan who wants to see these pictures later. Is there a Facebook page or something that we can share these pictures on? Or that?
Rory, you speak.
We'll see what we can do about that.
He'll try.
Okay, sounds great. I have some of them too, so maybe in a follow-up email, I'll send a few around if that's okay with you.
Yeah, and when I started out, I read off the things that I thought beforehand about what makes a good prop. I will make sure that gets posted somewhere so that someone could maybe download it and make copies of it if they're working with their group. This was Deb Matthews' office here in London, and Wynn was premier, and they wanted to sell Hydro One and privatize it. And we fought that for over a year. Every Friday, we went into Deb Matthews' little office at 12 noon and made a ruckus. Sometimes we danced folk dances and we sang and clapped hands and just, we occupied and stuffed her whole front office on Fridays. And sometimes she was there, sometimes she wasn't. And we did all sorts of things for well over a year. But the main thing I'm showing is these are paper plates that look like outlets. And one of the parts of the outlet is crying, if you can see the blue tear. And that's a simple thing. It's just duct taped onto a stick. Yeah, there you go. This is fighting Hydro One. We decided
Fighting privatization.
Yeah, privatization of Hydro One. And so again, in brainstorming, we thought about the goose that somebody said, it's like the goose that laid the golden egg. How could you sell private Hydro One when it's making so much money? It's terrible. So goose that sold the gold, that laid the golden egg would be a Canada goose. So here we are making Canada geese that were cut out of recycled old masonite or plywood, whatever we had, with a scroll saw, were painted, and then the golden eggs were painted gold. And this is in two pieces. The neck and head of the goose was one, the body was another. And we stenciled.
We have one more question. Oh, go ahead, sorry.
Message. Go on. Is there a question?
Yeah, sorry, that's a very, someone's asking, how have you been engaging in these creative activities during COVID?
We haven't.
No,
These were all prior to COVID. I'll show you the last thing we did before COVID.
Sure,
No.
and then I think after that last one, we'll go talk about breakout groups, okay?
Just the last 10 years.
After the last one. Okay, this is the last 10 years. Okay. By the way, the geese were planted all over London, and we even put corn around to get real geese to come there to create a spectacle so people would come see what was happening. These are just cardboard and they're painted, and these are the voices of the animals who don't have a voice usually. Okay, Sir Adam Beck. We thought of Don't Kill My Dream. He's the one that started Father of Public Hydro. So there's a tombstone made out of a box. We made an arm, out of chicken wire and paper mache, and we planted him in front of Deb Matthews' office. There's one of our beautiful climate justice banners. Julie Picken Cooper makes beautiful banners out of all recycled fabrics. We had to replace the pipeline snake because it got lost,
The body
but
gas.
somebody wrapped it up at the end of an event and went off with it.
Not the
They
head.
didn't know. We got the head, but we didn't know where the body went. So we decided to use trash leaf bags that you get in the dollar store. They're really cheap. And we stitched these leaf bags together to make cylinder 30 feet long. And there we are stitching it together. And there it is. And that's dripping oil, but we found that no kind of paint will stick to the waxy surface of these bags. So we're moving on to burying Adam Beck. We had a funeral service with invitations. We wore armbands. We walked down the street, and there's his arm coming out of the casket. Don't kill my dream. And there we are, there's the funeral service. And there it is being taken to Sarnia. And there it is again. That's a little girl that really, it was heavy for her, but she wanted to do that. We became a blue community. It was a long, long process, but one of the things we did was make, these are Goodwill blue shirts, and we made these you know, from Staples, you can get these and iron on. And so any event we went to, whenever we were had a booth or something, we wore these shirts, our water shirts. Okay, what happened was we decided that we couldn't get the letters to stick on the trash bags. So we made clothing for the Black Pipeline Snake. It's cloth. And you can see that we now could use it for Stop Kinder Morgan, Stop the Buyout. And we were in support of Unistolen and Wet Sweat. And so this is his outfit, and you can see little strings there. So what we did was just cover the cylinder and tie little bows along his tummy. And that way we could change our slogan anytime we wanted in the future. This is the last one I'm going to show you. Maud Barlow was made a chancellor of Brescia College, and she was honored, and we had a booth there protecting the Thames River, and also trying to get people to sign petitions to make London a blue community, and we did become a blue community. And that's the last
No,
thing.
that's the next one.
I think, oh, there it is up close. This is a screen. We had an old screen that I had, and it's been it's a rice paper screen, but it's very lightweight, and it's really good for making things. So this is the last thing, like the day before the lockdown.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much. I laughed a
welcome.
lot while you were showing us all of those things, and it reminded me a lot of
Should we get rid of it?
that I've taken part in as well. If folks want to show their appreciation, you can type something nice in the chat or
I'll do
the
it.
action button to
Okay.
give a little plus. And yeah, I am just so glad that we got to hear about all of those things with you. So we're going to move into a breakout group soon, and I'm going to give some instructions about what we'll do there first. So let me pull up my little notes. So we're going to put people into breakout groups by region. So that will happen in a minute. You'll get a little pop-up on your screen, join breakout group. And what the reason we're doing that is because we want to put you in touch with people in your area, maybe your chapter members, or maybe folks who are down the road a little bit. But we want to talk to you, or have you all talk together about doing a creative action about a relevant issue that we have going on right now. So this is like an opportunity for you all to have a big brainstorm about your CEDAPUS or whatever equivalent idea you come up with. Then yeah, so we'll spend some time brainstorming. We'll spend some time winnowing down to an idea that's like makes sense, doable, possible, fun, rain-proof, all of that stuff. And so this is the scenario that I hope you'll talk about in your brainstorm. So I'm sure many of you have heard there's a big issue out here where I live in Scotia with the Goldboro LNG project. Of course, there's projects all over the country. I mean, mostly on the coast, but this one in particular is of concern right now because the company behind it, called Perry Day Energy, has asked the federal government to give them almost $1 billion as the very first investment into this project. They don't have any private investors. But the time is kind of on this one because Perry Day needs to come up with an investment agreement by June 30th, so only in a few weeks. So they need to come up with an investment agreement to show their potential LNG buyer, a company called Uniper, that the project is moving along. So basically they need to demonstrate that they're like financially viable by the end of June. And it looks to us at this point like the Canadian government is not going to give that money, but we need to really drive it home. Perry Day has really heavily lobbied a number of ministers and MPs about this financing agreement. And then a lot of chapter members and staff on the East Coast have met with a number of these MPs to pressure them not to do it. And those meetings went fairly well. So we're reasonably hopeful that we will not see this money go to them, but we really need to drive it home. I'll let you know that so far we've already done a click to send letters. So we asked folks to send letters in to the minister and their MPs, and about 5,000 people sent a letter calling for the Minister of Finance, Chrystia Freeland, to not give this subsidy. We've also made a lot of phone calls, like several hundred phone calls to MPs in the Atlantic region who have been lobbied really heavily. And we've met with 4 MPs in the Atlantic, as well as some of Chrystia Freeland's policy advisors. So we really need to drive this thing home. We're hoping to have a day of action in real life, according to COVID protocols, wherever you are, in 2 weeks, so on June 23rd. And so what I hope we can do with this breakout session is brainstorm and come up with some creative ideas of things that are possible to do now. You don't necessarily need to do them, but I hope that by the time you think of the idea, you'll be excited to do something fun about this issue. And so what we're asking for is for folks, the target of this action could be your MP, because this is a federal decision that needs to be made. And what we would want to see is if your MP could call on their party and cabinet to, or specifically Freeland, to not give this subsidy. Under no circumstances can they give that subsidy. So I can answer any questions if anyone has any at this point, but basically with that information about the LNG project and the deadline coming up on June 30th, we're hoping folks will go into their breakout groups, spend about 10 minutes having a brainstorm of the types of actions that you could do to respond to that issue. Then we'll take 5 minutes to kind of take the big brainstorm list and winnow it down to something workable, and then spend about 10 more minutes talking about logistically how to make that really happen. Maybe my last note on that is sometimes the best idea for a creative action isn't necessarily the flashiest or your favorite one, but it's the one that's actually possible and extremely fun to do. So, and
then also, Robin, we want to let folks know for this original brainstorming session that just don't get picky during this time. Put every ridiculous idea that you have out there and every great idea, those two. But don't feel shy about saying things. This first stage is all about thinking of whatever you can, and then we'll whittle it down, whittle it down, whittle it down.
That's great. So I hope everyone had fun in their breakout groups. I know I did. Maybe we can do a go around. One person from each group can take 30 seconds to share the core idea that you all talked about. And I just want to make sure we're doing that in about 30 seconds so everyone has a chance to do it. So who wants to go first?
Should we just go down the list of groups?
Sure, that sounds fine.
Okay, so let's start with Pacific 1. That's Allison, Barbara, Fanny, and Kim. Did one of you want to share your great ideas with us, or the idea you even finished on? Kim?
Sorry, yeah, I could do it.
Okay, great.
Or I just unmuted myself, sorry.
No, that's great. That's great, Barbara.
We were talking about doing the Fairy Creek issue, which is a hot button issue in BC. And there's a call out for a big golden stand in front of your MLA's office tomorrow. And I know that they'll be doing that tomorrow here. So I was thinking that I just would wear a paper bag of some sort, like do something about being a tree. Anyway, through discussion we talked, somebody suggested, I can't remember her name now, but she was in my group and she said about the money. And I said, oh, well, I could be a stump and then I could put $1 billion or $1 million, not billion, but $1,000 bills all over the the stump because it's worth a lot of money. And that's what our kind of discussion was centering on. Well, how much money is a tree worth cut versus a tree standing, you know, something like
Okay,
that.
so something with props
Nice.
involving a tree stump to highlight the old growth logging, yeah?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks, Barbara.
Just for fun, because she won't be there anyway.
Well, that sounds great. Thank you so much, Barbara. We'll go over to Pacific 2, which is Christine, John, Nita, Pegasus, Teresa, and Ellie. Does one of you want to tell us the idea?
Yeah, I'll tell you the idea. This group suffered from poor leadership. I had the message wrong. I think you wanted feedback on something to stop the NLNG plant in Nova Scotia. Is that correct? Or was it more broad ranging?
I mean,
Yeah, but if you did
certainly.
something else, that's fine.
We know we
okay.
can't boss you around though, John. So I mean, any of you really. So what did you land on?
Well, we came, eventually somebody pointed out that I had it wrong. And so the idea that came forward is, there's several, but the biggest one was a jolly green giant, sort of representing a Green New Deal for Canada, going to the MP's office with a big sign saying, stop the LNG plant in wherever it was.
Cool. I like it. I'm excited to hear what you come up with in terms of creating the Jolly Green Giant. Thanks, John.
Okay.
All right, so we'll go to the Prairies Northwest Territories 1. That's Bev, Jason, Patricia, Corinne, Darla. Any of you happy to tell us what you landed on?
I can.
Great.
Okay, so we thought of, because of you know, a lot of widespread, unlike for Liberal government, we didn't want to put much focus on that in Alberta, and we wanted to just focus right on the issue of not lending money to a private business or company. So we thought of using the metaphor of Robin Hood, and Robin Hood would be holding, instead of arrows in his back, he would have a vacuum and a vacuum hose as quivers. And so they would be vacuuming money, and the vacuum canister would have Faraday on it. The vacuumer is vacuuming up tax dollars and then dumping it into a pot called investors. And so that we would just really focus on the issue and try to just keep the government out of it in Alberta.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Bev. So let's see, now it's Prairies Northwest Territories 2, which is Elizabeth, Catherine, Willem, and Terry. Any of you able to report back? We really shouldn't have sprung this on you. We should have had you determine the report back, folks. Chris, you were in that group. Are you able to maybe report back?
Yeah, for sure. The two main ideas that came up were conducting some sort of marriage ceremony between the government and Faraday. So that might be an interesting way to go about it, whether that's in front of your MP's office or on the steps of the legislature. And then the other piece we talked about was the visual image of flushing money down a toilet and how we could make that work, and also the connection between yes, thanks, Robin. Also the connection between where that money, like where the government is considering putting that money and where they should be putting that money. So the relationship between the fact that the government hasn't ended boil water advisories in First Nation communities, and instead they're putting that $1 billion and flushing that $1 billion down the toilet. So like playing with those ideas and those kind of interconnected struggles.
So was it two groups trying to source toilets, or did I somehow get confused? Were there two of you talking about toilets?
Yeah, I think toilets is going to be a common theme here. Let's hear from everybody else.
I love it.
We also thought of toilets, yeah.
Amazing. Okay, so Ontario Nunavut 2 is, 1 actually is Chantal, Anne, Kathleen, and Leticia. Is one of you able to update us on where you landed?
Yeah, I got the job. I have to say most of us in our group didn't even really understand what the issue was. So that took a while. Anyway, and we also discussed the fact that there were other issues that we thought were more important, but we were well behaved and we actually came up with an idea. And that's for either a radio or a video play, that it could be virtual. You could also do it face to face in person. And it would be a tourism guide. So the tourism guy or person is showing people how great this LNG plant will be, because that part of Nova Scotia depends so much on tourism. So obviously this is going to be a tourist attraction.
Well done.
That's great, Anne. Thank you so much.
Of course, tourism, right?
It's wonderful.
Ecotourism.
Okay, so Ontario, Quebec, Nunavut 2 is Anna, Lucian, Anna again, Dwyer, and Nora. Oh, Anna. Anna's up and ready to go. Well, my bad. Sorry about that. Take us away. Yeah.
I'm on?
Yeah, you're on.
God.
Where did you all land?
We kind of went all over the place with ideas, and then we remembered we were supposed to be talking about NLG or LNG, and then we were having fun with the whole snake thing, Roberta. I really want to borrow that, if you don't mind. I'm on to Black Creek, which is just full of sewage, another toilet theme, and all kinds of other nasty toxins that are spilling in and killing off wildlife now in a park. So that's my thing, and I got that from you, and my friend Anna came up with poetry competition.
Oh yeah.
And I think that really does apply. That's Cape Breton. I mean, bring in the songs, do a kitchen party, and put it online.
I love it. That's amazing.
That would be good.
Thank you so much, Anna.
Hey.
Okay, so now it's Ontario, Quebec, Nunavut 3.
We actually had two ideas.
Okay, well, we're just gonna have to stop at one because we're running behind. Sorry about that, Nora. So let's see. We've got Barizi, Mary, Lydia, and Jen in Ontario, Quebec, Nunavut 3. Can one of you let us know where you landed?
Yep. It's Mary Love from Hamilton. We would be making some kind of a ship, and our action would do best in some sort of a water park with a little island in it, or we would create a desert island. It's about stranded assets. So LNG, like a lot of these fossil fuel companies, they're having trouble to get insurers. So we want to convince Captain Christia, who is on the ship, that we will stage a mutiny if she gives that subsidy to LNG. Instead, she has to strand them on the desert island, turn her back on them, which she reluctantly does. This is, like theater, basically. And with a combined Indigenous led with settlers, allies, doing the going up and down the rigging to get the ship to turn around, we set off to give the subsidy money to the reserves that don't have clean running water. So that's cool that two groups have said that now. So
great. Thank you, Mary. I love it.
You're welcome, Angie.
So that brings us to Ontario, Quebec, Nunavut 4, which is Elise, Virginia, Roberta, Donna, and Ron, and V. Can one of you report back for us?
Are any of us there but me? Okay, I'll report. First of all, we didn't know what kind of sea creatures would be endangered or whether the fracking would go under the water or whatever. But if we knew that and it was whales, we thought of making a huge whale, which a whole bunch of people would walk with. We also thought of having making sea animals out of cardboard. There's the idea of having postcards with different designs and other reasons you could use the money better that would be sent.
Roberta, sorry, I'm just going to interrupt you just because we were looking for the one idea that you landed on, not all the ones that
We
you
didn't
brainstormed.
land on one, but we
Talking
did
about a
like the
toilet.
toilet with plungers standing all over the lawn and at every capitol, and a toilet on a wagon and rolls of toilet paper and people in lines writing on a piece of white paper and sticking it in the toilet.
Everybody with plungers.
And we had
for all
another
the people.
idea was to make little wallets like an envelope, and everybody would write how you could better spend the money on a piece of green paper, stick it in the wallet and mail it in.
Love it. Okay, great. We're going to rush right through this because we want to get you into your last breakout group. We're a little bit over, so thanks for hanging with us. So Ontario, Quebec, Nunavut 5. We just want to hear about your idea that you landed on. That's Peter, Chelsea, and Salvatore. It looks like your group kind of whittled down there.
Ours did too.
Yeah.
Oh, we were just 3. So I'm gonna report back.
Yes. Hi, Chelsea.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Chelsea.
I took notes, so here we go. But
nice.
A lot of it's been said. It was already about how we wanted, like we thought of visually representing what we want versus what we don't want. And the billion and what that could be spent on. So there was also mentioned First Nations drinking water, healthcare, long-term care, home care, childcare farm. So we kind of talked about how do you visually represent like $1 billion for that and where does it go? Or local issues like $1 billion could build more LRT in my neighborhood. Something where the costing makes sense and the math makes sense. And then there was the idea of having pots of beads where kids are interacting with them, and there's different jars and sizes and scales of what each one is. There was the a drawing of like an idea of like a big banner outside an MP's office. I can't see what I'm doing. But anyway, a banner, it was showing like how much is that and how much is this? So some kind of like visual scale of what that looks like. And or the classic bury the money on the lawn of an MP's office and tell people to dig it up and be like, hey, it's your money and this is how much it was, and so you can go dig it up. Those are some ideas.
Those are really good ideas.
Beads, not beets. Beets would be delicious, but beads.
Amazing. Okay, so I guess what we're actually going to do, since we're running over, is we're just going to hear the ideas from the last 2 groups, and then the assumption would be that you then figure out the logistics, but we're not going to keep you too late past. So that brings us to the group Atlantic 1, which is Anne, Al, Barbara, Joanne, Catherine, and our own Robin. Does one of you want to report back?
Yes, I'll report back. Once again, we went with the toilet theme, and we had the idea of creating installations on targeted MPs' lawns using real toilets, and we would have money bills put into them, like $1,000 denominations, that sort of thing, to show how much money was going down the drain, down the tubes, down the toilet, and saying, don't flush our money down the toilet, regarding the LNG.
Another toilet theme.
Yes.
So fun. That's amazing. Thank you, Anne. And then for Atlantic 2, we have Angela, Linda, Marilyn, Marion, Patricia, and Carolyn. Does one of you want to tell us your ideas?
I could if no one else wants to.
That'd be great. Yeah.
Okay. So we had a lot of song ideas, especially around like Nova Scotia themed stuff, like what could I do with $1 billion instead of what do you do with a drunken sailor? Or there's a hole in my bucket, dear Liza, but you replace the Liza with the MP's name, for example. We talked a little bit about Paraday and how Sorensen, the head of Paraday, is like a thief essentially. And so someone wearing a bandit costume with like a bag of money was a visual representation. The Justice or Lady of Justice. So one side, money kind of going up in smoke, and the other side, public services, you know, Indigenous rights, etc. And the last one I'll share is the Christmas Carol idea. So it kind of ties in the bandit idea, but then everyone else is behind them in chains. So we didn't get to really flush them out, but those were the favorites. That's what
Didn't get to flush them out.
Wow.
Sorry, I'm dying at all the toilet jokes. Well, this was thoroughly enjoyable for me. I hope it was thoroughly enjoyable for all of you. I've laughed for the last hour and a half, and in a pandemic, I think that's pretty good. We're gonna send some stuff. People asked for photos. We're gonna send the recording and all of that after this, so you'll get that in your inbox. And I just want to say, I mentioned this in the beginning, I think I didn't, maybe I didn't say it loud enough, but we are hoping, so the deadline on this LNG thing is June 30th. The company needs to lock down some money by the end of June to get this show on the road, and we can stop them. I think we have done a lot of work to stop them, and so we are hoping on June 23rd, which is 2 weeks from today, we're going to do a little day of action. We're going to send out a call tool to everyone that's ever cared about LNG on our lists and ask people to be phoning Krista Freeland. But I think that would be augmented in a serious way by some toilets appearing on lawns or some Robin Hooding people with vacuums. And so if you are interested in carrying out any of these ideas that you've come up with, I would deeply encourage you to do so. For a laugh and also for a little more pressure on our politicians. And so if you do choose to do one of the actions that we talked about, please, please, please make sure that you take a picture and send it to us so that we can amplify that and also so we can have a good laugh about it. So we'll send you a reminder of all of this in the follow-up email. I think that might be all. AJ, is that all?
I just want to thank everybody for joining us. It's lovely to see you all, and I really look forward to your creative actions. And also, if you're wanting to do a creative action in your region, and you would like a regional organizer to contribute to making that happen, just get in touch with your regional organizer, and I'm sure we would be happy to get creative with you. All right, that's us. Enjoy your days. Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everyone. It was so great to see you.
Yeah.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank
Sorry.
you.
Can you just say how we access the recording? Will that be emailed?
Yeah, we'll just email it to you.
We'll email you a link. Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks.